This is the Art and Science of Feeding, Part 1. My name is Layton of Balanced Equine. I'm an independent equine nutritionist. Independent means I'm not owned by any feed or supplement company. My approach is evidence-based science. In this video, I will explain the best approach for dealing with two common horse problems: faded or sun-bleached coats and dry, brittle and cracked hooves. First of all, let's look at the basics of equine nutrition, the art and science of feeding. I'll have to be brief. For my full-day seminars, I go into a lot more detail and cover a broad range of topics and also provide plenty of time for answering questions. The basic nutritional management for horses should be the same, whether you have a much-loved member of the family in the back paddock or are feeding a horse to win an endurance ride, a dressage test or at the racetrack. The ultimate goal in feeding should be to have a healthy horse with no nutrient deficiencies, able to perform at the best of his or her ability at their level of fitness and conditioning with a robust immune system. We want our horses to do what we ask as easily and comfortably as possible. A little about myself. I've been in love with horses all my life, and as an adult I've been for many years a science and technology teacher. Years ago, around 2007, I was told by various people what to feed my horses. It was confusing and contradictory. Feed supplements like garlic, apple cider vinegar, rose hips, brewer's yeast, vegetable oil, molasses and grains such as barley, but no one could tell me why they are so supposedly beneficial and how much to feed, for what workload, when to feed. I got a lot of airy-fairy answers. As an evidence-based science advocate, I needed a deeper understanding. I enrolled in equine nutrition courses and I've not stopped studying since then. It continually amazes me how poor nutrition information is online and elsewhere. This is my main endurance horse, Squiggle, my chestnut. Implementing what I learned from my studies helped Squiggle and I to achieve some success. I'm not a particularly competitive endurance enthusiast. I enjoy endurance for the social side as much as the actual event, but we have managed to achieve National Points and Distance Horse, the prestigious One Rider, One Horse Award, 3 Shazada Buckles, which is 400 kilometres marathon over 5 days, and 2 Tom Quilty Buckles, both in New South Wales. Before I start on how to achieve optimal hoof quality, I'd like to explain some of the issues caused by poor nutrition. A mineral deficient or imbalanced intake can be reflected in the coat, the hooves, and with poor immune system responses to pathogens and infections. It's not surprising for a horse with a compromised immune system to be more prone to infections like greasy heel. And these infections can take longer to resolve, maybe even keep coming back. Coat colour can be the most obvious sign. It's common to see bleached and faded coats. A very common cause is a lack of copper and/or zinc in the diet. A horse's coat will bleach or fade because the copper-dependent enzyme called tyrosinase is responsible for the production of melanin. It's a brownish-black pigment synthesized from the amino acid tyrosine. Sufficient copper is needed to produce the pigment in buckskins and chestnuts, and both copper and zinc are needed for black, brown and grey coats. Copper deficiency in other species influences coat colour and produces rusting of dark coats. This is especially noticeable in the manes of bays and black horses. This effect in horses has not been proven formally, but horses showing red tips on dark manes of dark coats respond well to copper and zinc supplementation. The change can be as fast as 10 days. The purpose of the pigments is to act as a shield against ultraviolet light oxidizing the pigments. If there is a less than optimal levels in the diet, the hair is more prone to bleaching but will look normal until enough pigment has been damaged to cause the colour change. That's why a newly grown winter coat or summer coat will appear darker but then lighten over time if the horse is copper and zinc deficient. If your horse is on a more than adequate nutrient and mineral balanced diet, there's no need for rugging or worse, being kept indoors. Friesians are interesting as they are one breed where some individuals can deposit more pigments in the hair shaft than other horses. It's possible for a true genetic black Friesian to be copper and zinc deficient, yet not show any fading or bleaching. The mineral deficiencies or imbalances may be expressed in other ways, like niggling health issues such as less than optimal hoof quality, mystery lamenesses and so forth. To prevent your horse's hooves looking like this, dry and cracked, there are 3 aspects of horse care that are all very important. hoof care, nutrition, and movement. Quality hoof care is all about optimal balance, allowing the hoof to grow stronger and to function properly. If the hoof wall is too long, it will magnify leverage forces on the lamina, stretching and weakening the lamina, allowing pathogens in. These pathogens can eat away the lamina, preventing the transfer of nutrients to the outside wall, drying out the connective tissue between the tubules. With the drying and weakening of the hoof wall, mechanical forces can cause the more obvious large cracks or breaks in this hoof. With nutrition, a horse on a mineral-balanced diet will be set up for a robust immune system, as the immune system is built on nutrients. The immune system is dependent on many factors like workload, stress, wellness, for example an underlying infection. However, a horse with the best possible intake, even the gold standard with it based on data from pasture or hay testing, whichever is applicable, can't avoid infections like seedy toe and thrush if the conditions are set up for it. Assuming a horse is not stressed, for example separated from a paddock mate or been moved to a new location, so forth, a workload that stresses a horse not well, then seedy toe and thrush can still occur if the conditions are present that allow these microbes to flourish. Nutrition and hoof care work together. If there are any cracks in the hooves which allow the microbes to penetrate the hoof, it gives those microbes an opportunity to have a population boom in that environment, and you may well have what we call seedy toe. The minerals will support a horse's immune system, but once established, you have to remove the infection and support recovery. With thrush, manure, wet conditions make it so much easier for these microbes to become established. The outer part of the hoof must be able to withstand abrasive, noxious substances or pathogens, but also be flexible enough to withstand kilograms of impact, to absorb and divert the shock sustained on them. Hooves have to be rigid as well as elastic. This hoof is a good example of how nutrition can make such a difference. The lower part of the hoof wall is typical of poor quality keratin that is not coping well with the environmental conditions. It's dry, brittle and cracked. The change in hoof quality was when my mineral mix called Hoof Rescue was introduced. It was the only change. It's important to mention the role of the environment. One study examined how environmental conditions could affect hoof wall integrity. Heat, cold and water had no effect. The sole and frog left in manure for 2 weeks and disintegrated, and poor quality hoof wall horn was also badly affected. On the other hand, good quality hoof wall was only marginally changed. Urine alone had little effect, but combining urine and manure had the same results as manure alone. Speaking as a horse owner, I'd never want my horses to be standing in manure for any length of time. It's good practice to regularly clean out your horse's feet. Nutrition. So what do horses need? First of all, if it's good for hooves, it's also good for body, the coat, the mane, the tail, the immune system, everything. The best approach is a mineral-balanced diet based on data, with no deficiencies. The bulk of the intake is either grass or hay or both. They can be tested in a lab for nutrient levels. From this data it can be worked out what needs to be supplemented to correct a deficiency and what is in excess that needs to be dealt with. When this isn't possible, a quality mineral supplement is the next best option, but if you have no data for the bulk of the intake, it's going to be a guess. Hopefully an educated guess, but it's still a guess. Mineral balance refers to mineral ratios. Minerals can compete with each other. For example, high levels of zinc is known to compete with copper and vice versa. The National Research Council, NRC, recommends the optimum ratio to be 1:4. Though many nutritionists consider 1:3 to be better due to the potential of sulfur to interact with copper. Sulfur can create precipitates of sulfates and sulfides and thus prevent absorption. In a study on growing foals, excessive zinc intakes without also increasing copper intake cause copper deficiency symptoms of joint swelling, lameness, joint effusions and cartilage defects. The phrase mineral balance is used a lot in the horse industry. But what counts is the mineral ratios for the whole intake, not just for one product or one supplement. While a number of nutrients are important for hooves, horses on high forage diets don't need everything but the kitchen sink supplemented. This hoof is a great example. It shows a dramatic change simply with the supplementation of significant levels of copper and zinc. It's interesting how many feed and supplement companies have made horse owners think that they need to supplement a range of nutrients. From my equine nutrition studies and the NRC nutrient requirements of horses, it's unnecessary to supplement vitamins for horses on high forage diets. Of course, there may be exceptions, but they are literally exceptions to the rule. Many of the vitamins are manufactured by the horse via gut microbes or in pasture and hay and other feeds. The exception is vitamin E for horses that are fed significant quantities of processed feed and hay or are on a workload. For horses on grass in no work, it's far less likely the need to supplement vitamin E, as grass is a rich source. It's worth knowing that vitamin E should not be stored with other minerals as it degrades very easily and is heat sensitive, so even if a commercial feed or supplement lists it as an ingredient, it can't be entirely counted. Vitamin E can react with inorganic minerals, especially iron. If there is any organic carrier in the mix, it will also act as a natural antioxidant, as fats oxidize and bacterial fungal growth occurs. Another example of improved hoof quality, simply with the supplementation of copper and zinc. Best Guess and my other mineral products, Hoof Rescue Plus Selenium, and Laminitis Rescue were formulated on the basis of thousands of pasture and hay tests. One pattern that stands out is that copper and zinc levels are deficient for horses, but not deficient for grass. What can vary is the copper to zinc ratio, but most of the time it's around 1 to 3, but can be as high as 1 to 10. Not all horses may respond. The best mineral product is the one that complements the rest of the intake, which is the bulk of the intake by far, your grass or your hay. Recently I helped a horse owner with a custom mix with copper and zinc at a ratio of 1 to 2. Within days the horse's coat had gone a lot darker and now has dapples and is shiny. The rest of the intake is higher in zinc, but still low in copper. My mineral mix corrects it for the whole intake. You can't tell by looking at grass or hay, and certainly not by looking at photos of various types of pastures and hay. It's misleading for anyone to suggest it. Nutrient levels are influenced by a number of factors, including soil pH. Fat plays an important role in sealing moisture in and keeping water out. A healthy hoof retains its natural moisture and pliability due to the waxes and fats in the wall. The outermost layer is the periopal, very noticeable in the top photo on the left. Horses are never deficient in fats, but what studies have showed is that the composition of the fats in the hoof wall and periopal reflect the composition of fats in the diet. So what is the best fat or oil to supplement? If your horse's intake is mostly grass, there's no need to supplement any. The horse's natural diet of vegetation or grass is actually relatively low in fat, usually less than 4%. It may be low, but there's never been a reported dietary fat deficient horse. Instead of quantity, the focus should be on quality. Grass and other plants are rich in omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in the fatty acid ratio of 4 to 1 or higher, and can be as high as 20 to 1. The role of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids for skin health in horses and in the immune system is well documented. For a horse on pasture, there is no dietary requirement for fat, as the body can convert nutrients from one form to another, with the exception of the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which must come from the diet. Fats and oils such as rice bran oil, vegetable oil, canola oil and others are too high in omega-6 fatty acids and too low or have zero omega-3 fatty acids. I'm often asked, do linseeds need to be broken up or ground? The answer depends on the dentition of the horse and how well the teeth break up the hard outer shell. No discussion of hoof quality and growth can leave out biotin. Biotin is often suggested as the magic bullet for fixing hoof issues, but for every study that showed an improvement in hoof quality or growth, there is a study that showed there was no change. Biotin is definitely important, but for many horses on high forage diets, it's more likely that biotin isn't deficient, but nutrients like copper and zinc are. Like the other B vitamins, biotin is in grass, hay and other feeds and manufactured by gut microbes. Another question is whether hoof dressings are worthwhile. They can superficially make the hoof look nicer in some people's eyes, but studies have shown that the moisture barrier in hooves is impermeable to hoof dressings. The level of penetration was less than 1 mil. There are many factors that influence the type of hoof a horse will have, including hereditary factors, hoof care, amount of movement, type of environment, and nutrition. No one factor on its own can produce the best possible hoof if one or more of the others are working against it. Nutrition alone can't do it, nor can hoof care on its own. The quality of care, especially in the early years of a horse's development, matters. If you can, avoid nailing rigid shoes on, as it's well documented to restrict tissue perfusion, the movement of nutrients into cells via the blood. At least wait as long as possible till the horse is fully grown. If you would like to learn about equine nutrition, I can recommend NRC Plus, an online course provided by Dr. Eleanor Kellen, VMD, a world leader in equine nutrition. It runs for 10 weeks, and once you have paid for a class, you can enroll in future NRC Plus classes for free. NRC Plus consists of weekly materials and an opportunity to ask questions via discussion group format. The course is also approved for units towards continuing education by the American Association of Veterinary State Boards. It's an international course. I can also recommend Dr. Kellen's online magazine, The Horse's Mouth. An example of an edition that was very relevant to Australian horse owners featured the benefits, disadvantages and myths of mineral sources such as magnesium chloride. Try and get your hands on that one. The cost is very affordable. I offer a range of quality products based on research, and I also offer feeding advice based on scientific evidence. Any hay or pasture test results are analysed and explained, and used as a basis for feeding recommendations so that mineral imbalances and nutrient deficiencies and excesses are corrected. I also evaluate what you're currently feeding. A custom mineral mix recipe is provided so the horse owner can choose to make it themselves from raw ingredients, thus reducing their costs. The report contains nutritional information and suggestions for breeding or growing or performance horses. Recommendations are given for performance horses for the best way to support them along the lines of timing of feeding, what to feed after work, electrolyting, and so forth. Help is available for veterinary diagnosed issues such as laminitis, tying up, ulcers, diarrhea, sugar sensitivity, insulin resistance, equine metabolic syndrome, and Cushing's PPID. Horses cost a lot of money, and there is plenty of stuff to throw money away on. Feed companies offer advice for free, as long as you accept their recommendation of something in their product line, and there may be nothing they sell that suits your horse's situation. On my full-day seminars, I cover a lot more topics looking holistically at feeding horses, and there's always time for questions. Seminars scheduled so far this year in Tasmania, South Australia and the ACT. Later in the year I'll be heading to New Zealand, and in late October I'll be presenting at the No Laminitis Conference in Tucson, Arizona in America. For anyone outside of Australia, you can join in on the 6-hour webinar split across 2 dates in May, hosted by the Pacific Hoof Care practitioners in America. If you would like to host a seminar, please email me. Email address is on my website, balancedequine.com.au. I'm looking forward to presenting soon in Tassie and Adelaide, South Australia. Space is limited, so please book soon. And thank you to Pauline Williams of Horse FX and Julie Feidler of Horse South Australia for your support in the making of this video, and all the horse owners who have contributed before and after photos for me to use.